Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits and welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I have found some new and unique supplies to play with. They are called Creative Cuts from Joggles. Creative Cuts are 5x7 die cut, smooth and sturdy cardstock that you can use as stencils and masks, and you can paint on the gel plate and then use them as background elements in your collage work. So this week I'm going to show you how I do just that, how I use the Creative Cuts as background elements, and I am working on this piece for my Patreon page. This is going to be part of my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Elizabeth St. Hilaire. And I'm going to be using this as a multi-part lesson from start to finish. But this week, I wanted to give you a sneak peek into that lesson and how I am using these wonderful new Creative Cuts from Joggles. So if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. Welcome to the studio. So today I am working on this mixed media crow collage, and this is a piece that is in progress in a multi-video series on my Patreon page. So far on Patreon, we've covered building the background, sketching and underpainting the crow, and sealing all the charcoal so that it doesn't smudge, using some Stabilo woodies, adding some color blocks, etc. So this crow is in progress on my Patreon page. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a month-to-month subscription, and it is a website where I put a new tutorial video every week, and more times than not, these are series of videos. So they're like lessons from start to finish, like mini workshops. And a video publishes every week, and you are only committed for 30 days. So come on over for $25, check it out for 30 days and see if it's something you might like. The material goes all the way back to May of 2020. So there's tons of immediate access tutorials once you jump in, and there'll be even more every week. So that being said, this is a project from Patreon, and I've gotten to the point where I've got the underpainting done. And before I collage the crow and make that instructional video, I wanted to incorporate some of these super cool Creative Cuts from Joggles. Now, these Creative Cuts are on black, smooth and sturdy stock. So they come in 5x7 on black, smooth and sturdy stock, which is great on the gel plate because it doesn't stick and it doesn't tear. I mean, it may stick to the surface and you have to pull it off really, if you get one of those really sticky prints, but it won't tear, and it won't stick to the surface of the gel plate and leave itself behind like sometimes the rice paper can do, because this is cardstock and it's got a very smooth surface. And a smooth surface is what typically pulls all the paint off of the gel plate. So they come like this in black, and they come in many, many, many designs, with more patterns being designed all the time. And they're unique. They come in every style, from what we would consider a stencil with holes that make the patterns, to what we would consider a mask with positive cuts that make the patterns, to what we would consider maybe both with positive and negative. And you can use them to print on your gel plate as well. So you can use these like stencils and masks, print with them multiple times on your rice paper to create gel prints, and then when you are done with them, you can use them in your artwork all covered with paint. For me, I specifically painted my Creative Cuts in colors for this project. So I put them on the gel plate and I applied sort of a grungy neutral, and I also picked up some of the colors in the composition. So you can see the orange in the composition. I picked that up on here. I picked a little bit of blue, teal on that one, and then more of the grungy neutral colors. And my hope is to take these apart and use some pieces and parts and elements of these in the background. So I want to add these in the background, and I'm going to add them at this point. Look at that. Wouldn't that be beautiful over there? pieces and parts of it, not the whole. And I'm going to add them at this point so they can tuck behind the crow, and then I will collage the crow on top, and the edges will overlap anywhere where the creative cuts and the background goes behind the crow. So this is the point that you would add background elements before you collage your subject on top, so that the background elements can touch and tuck behind. Okay, so like I said, I gel printed these specifically for this project, and I'm going to show you how I did that, because you can see that I created like a multicolor surface on these, and I did it in one print or sometimes two prints, and I got this kind of variated surface of color that I think is a lot more interesting than just a solid color. So I'm going to show you how I do that. And I think these are great elements for backgrounds. You can use them, like I said, for stencils and masks. And they are also 5x7. So if you're a card maker and you want to gel print one of these and put them on a 5x7 card blank, they make a beautiful card. And all you have to do is adhere them possibly to a dark card blank. For example, I have some 5x7 envelopes here for cards. You could put it over a craft background like that, or a colored. You could also gel print a color and put them over it like this. I mean, wouldn't those make beautiful cards? So you use them as a stencil or mask, and then when they're all beautiful and covered with paint, you can mount them and use them as a greeting card 5x7. So let's see. I'm going to show you how I did this. Okay, so we're going to take the card cuts, and I am using my 5x7 gel plate, and I'm also using a 2-inch brayer so that I can apply the paint in small areas. So the 2-inch brayer is important, and I am using colors from my composition. So I'm using raw sienna, Naples yellow, Titan buff, and a little bit of burnt umber light. These are all neutrals that'll go in the background of my composition. You are going to want to use an opaque color on the base, or mix an opaque color with a transparent color in order to cover the black. So in order to get this type of coverage over the black, we need to use an opaque color, and the opaques in this mix are Naples yellow and Titan buff, and you can determine that because you can see the tick marks through the raw sienna and the burnt umber light a lot more clearly than you can through the Naples yellow and the Titan buff. So these are more opaque and these are more translucent colors. So you either start with an opaque base, or we can blend an opaque. So for example, I can add a little bit of this raw sienna to the Naples yellow and create an opaque sort of more yellowish brown. So let's start with that. So the base, I'm going to add a little bit of the Naples yellow and a little bit of the raw sienna. And what I like about the black of these is to allow a little bit, possible to allow a little bit of the black to show through. That's a little... I did that here. You can see sort of the black showing through, and I did it on one of the swirly ones here. You can see the black showing through. And I thought a little bit of the black mixed in would work well since the crow is so heavy on black. So to have a little bit of the black showing could be desirable. If not, cover the whole plate with your paint. But if so, we're going to blend this together by bumping that 2-inch brayer around, but leaving some open areas on the plate so that we can allow the black to show through. We're going to put it right into the paper, and then I'm going to use my favorite rice paper pad, because any of the cleanup sheets that we use in this process can be future gel prints for collage. So rather than use a piece of printer paper to print the negative space in, I'm going to use my rice paper so that I can make this into a sheet of collage paper. Why not? I'm using my good quality paints, and I'm going to put it on my good quality paper so that I'm not throwing away a sheet of printer paper with good quality paint on it, because I don't want to collage with printer paper. It doesn't glue down nicely like rice paper does. Okay, so we're putting the smooth side of the rice paper down on the plate. And because this is thicker than the plastic of a stencil, you really have to get your fingertips in between all the little spaces of the design and make sure the paper is making contact with the plate. So you really want to get your fingertips all in there. And you can see where you've missed a spot and you apply a little more pressure, just like we do with the gel plate and the 9x12 Mylar stencils. So I add a little bit more pressure to this. And here I've got a stencil print, and I've also, and you'll see you pull this off and it doesn't stick. It won't stick to the plate, and it's very sturdy. And we pull it off, and here we've got, again, that variegated color, that Naples yellow and the raw sienna mixture, and then I've got some black showing through. And if you decide that that's too much, we've got a little bit of paint there, so we can press parts of it down into the light paint that's on the plate, and we can add a little more paint and a little more variation to the colors by just coming back and pressing it into some of the ghosted material that's left behind. Now, if I want to have a little bit less black, and that all depends on your preference, I'm going to add a little bit more of the raw sienna, and I'm going to put this in, and we'll see. This is probably going to tone down the Naples yellow, but we'll see. And there we go. Now I can come in here and get the corners, a little bit more paint, wherever you want a little bit more paint. Okay, so that's really nice. And it is in the colors of my background, and it's letting a little bit of the black show through. And I think that's going to be really successful in pieces and parts on the background of this crow. So you have to just decide your subject matter and what kind of shapes you want to use for the background. I like printing up a bunch of these like I did so that I have some options, because what I think that I might use in the beginning is not always what I end up using in the end. So I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt umber light with the Titan buff. The Titan buff will lighten it up and it'll make it opaque. So I'm going to create another kind of neutral background color to go with this particular piece. Now, you can use these as stencils and masks and just do them willy-nilly in whatever colors you're making your paper in, and then afterward, just keep them in a stash to use for future projects, and you'll have them in all different colors. So, and you don't even have to think about painting them if you go ahead and use them as a stencil, because you will be using them and they'll be getting colored as a bonus. So here we've got this lattice work pattern, and I love this one as a stencil because it's such a great pattern. And you can also, if you don't want this white in the background, which you know I generally don't, you could start with light colored solid sheets. You know, make yourself a pile of light colored solid sheets and then use the cleanup onto those. Or we can come back and tone down the white by brushing paint onto these or by printing a solid gel print across the top of them. So in here, we're going to pull this up, and we've got sort of a really nice brown with a little bit of light yellow and a little bit of black showing through. I love that. So, and then lastly, we're going to do, and we can also take this ghost print if it's not dry. There we go, on the other side. So these do work as stencils and masks, and then double as cutouts that you can use in the background. So the stars, for the stars, I'm going to use the Titan buff first, and let's do it's going to pick up color from the brayer and the plate, but let's do a full print of the Titan buff in showing an example of when you don't want black. So again, I'll take the rice paper so that I can use it in the future. I'm going to put the smooth side down. I'm going to use my fingertips to make sure I get pressure inside all of those stars. And then I've got a great star pattern that I can definitely build on with that rice paper. And when I peel this back, I've got a really nice full bleed of that Tighten Buff. It still does show a little bit of black through. If you wanted to get rid of the black completely, you could hit it twice. I love the black showing through there. It just is so interesting, a little bit of the dark. So let's pull the ghost print of this star. So we've got the ghost print and the positive print. And then I'm going to come back and put some of the Naples yellow on top of that white. And again, I'm going to use my 2-inch brayer and just sort of put it not everywhere, just selectively. And then I'm going to put the stars back in that. And I like the 5x7 plate for this because it lines up perfectly. And I don't have to get my hands dirty over the edges, but you know, you've got the cleanup sheet. But if you've got a different size gel plate, you can use what you have. It's just this 5x7 is convenient because it's exactly the same size as the creative cuts. Okay, so now I've added more stars, and there I've given it more of a creamy yellow tint. So that's the 2 layers. Beautiful. I love that. It's going to work well with my crow background. And I'm just going to grab this ghost print while it's wet. And you can see that these work really nice as stencils. Okay, so let's set this aside and set the paint aside, and we'll have a look. So we created these great stars that'll be interesting elements in the background. The lattice work, which is a little dark, I think, for this. I would probably go over this and make it a bit lighter. And then the this swirly one, which is also nice, but maybe a little dark. I think this is probably the best value for my background. So I can always come back in here and add Tighten Buff in order to lighten it up in certain areas. But I printed myself a pile of these in a variety of neutral background colors. So there's definitely stuff in here that I can work with. So the key with these creative cuts is integrating them into the design of your work and not just plopping them on any which way. So you do want to pay attention to how they flow with your composition and how they work with your subject if you're going to incorporate them into the mixed media the way that I am. I also encourage you to use them as stencils and masks and print with them and gel plate with them and sponge paint through them and use them over and over. And then when they're all beautiful and covered with paint, save them to use as collage elements in your background. These I painted specifically to match the background of my crow, but I wouldn't mind having a stash of them in random colors just for fun. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you can see the creative possibilities of these creative cuts from Joggles. Happy Friday, and thank you for being here. And if you want to see the completion of this project in a multi-part video series, come on over and check me out on patreon.com. Come for a month for $25 and see if it's a good platform for inspiring and informing your creativity. Well, I hope you found this interesting and exciting and as inspiring as I do. I'm really looking forward to all the different ways that I can use these creative cuts, and Joggles is coming up with new designs all the time. So check out their website. All the links for the supplies are going to be below. Thanks for your support. Thanks for considering joining me on Patreon, and I'll see you back here next week.